Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the James Salzberg room at the Peter MacCallum Cancer Centre, which is part of the Victorian Comprehensive Cancer Centre, and welcome to everyone who's listening to all of this online. My name is John Spillane. I'm a surgeon working at the Peter MacCallum Cancer Centre, and I've been asked to just chair this session just for this afternoon. Before we get any further ahead, I'd just like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land in which this event is taking place, which is the land of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, and pay respect to their elders and families, past, present and emerging. So welcome to today's demonstration of the QooL VIC and Oncology dashboard. I love the name QooL VIC. It's great to have a catchy acronym when you want to introduce something. The Victorian Government is developing this software and going to roll it out as an MDT software to regional Victoria Health Services as well as metropolitan Melbourne. Today we've got 4 speakers who are going to give us some more information about this. We have Danica Cossio, Tracy Guan, Philip Hepner and Simon Phillips, who are going to come and speak to us. I'll introduce sort of each of them as we go along. This Cancer Multidisciplinary Team Network is going to assist in the preparation, documentation, communication, but also continuity of care and look at quality improvements, and also a statewide multidisciplinary team linkage, which is something that is long overdue within Victoria. So I'd like to first invite Simon and Philip up, who are going to give a brief coverage of some of the work that we're going to discuss this afternoon. Simon is an IT project manager with Hume Regional Integrated Cancer Services and has more than 20 years IT production management experience. Philip owns his own ICT consulting business called Jase Consulting and has had more than 3 decades of experience in working both in commercial, government and non-profit sectors. So we'll invite them to the floor and we'll keep questions towards the end. Thank you.
Firstly, thank you very much for making time today to come along to this presentation. We're going to essentially set the context of how this project came about in the first part. We're going to listen to our Queensland representatives who will talk about their experiences in Queensland over the last decade. And we're also going to see the software itself. So we're going to see the demonstration, all things being technically possible. We're going to see the demonstration of what we call QooL VIC. And
can I get you to stand in front of the microphone?
Sure.
Otherwise you probably won't get picked up on.
There we go. And also we are going to look at the Queensland Oncology dashboard. So we'll have a good look at that as well, and then wrap up with Q&A. So that's the plan. Always wise to test the pointer.
There we go.
Okay, cool. Okay, so let's start with the background. As we're all probably aware, MDMs are a cornerstone of good practice for cancer patients and clinicians. This does require a significant investment of both dollar and time in preparation, performance, and post-review of the treatment plans that come out of those MDMs. And it's been a key plank of Victoria's cancer reform since 2005. You're probably aware that most health services across Victoria have a variety of bespoke software for managing MDMs. This software has different maturities, ranging from some software which is effectively has capability to analyze that data and make meaningful conclusions, through to software which is pretty much a silo. It's a repository of data often held by one person or one part of the institution on a needs-to-know basis. Now, that in itself creates problems in terms of understanding and of being able to analyze that data and actually see what value comes from that collection. The other big thing from an IT perspective is around the integration component. If there is no integration, you will find yourself spending an awful lot of time keying data in or repeating data into the system in terms of getting ready or concluding that meeting. Now, one point I would like to stress when we talk about technology is that although we're talking about MDM software and the importance that that software provides, that's only just one part of the matrix, which is MDM. Technology does allow us during an MDM discussion to convert clinical discussions into decisions, and we record that into an IT system. In terms of a future direction, we're looking for automation. We're looking for linkages between regional and sub-regional institutions, but that's just one part of the jigsaw. The other part is the process, what we sometimes call workflow. That in itself is a significant part of the actual activity as well. What we do prior to the meeting to collect information, what we do during the meeting to record the information in a manner in which it's valuable. To then distribute the minutes of that or the treatment plans that come out of that meeting is a process in itself that needs to be carefully standardized and understood. And finally, the people who attend the meeting, are they the right people that attend the meeting? Are they the people that actually contribute to the meeting and add value to that meeting itself? What type of culture within that meeting do you have? Do you have one which is a democracy? Do you have people who contribute towards that freely, irrespective of their position within the organization? Or do you have an autocracy or a monarchy in terms of a top-down approach to that discussion? We're not going to touch on the two that I just mentioned. We're just going to focus on technology today. So this journey began with the fact that we had disparities in cancer outcomes between regional and metro patients around survivorship. The decision was made by the Commonwealth to fund various projects, one of which was MDM for regional multidisciplinary software to help reduce that disparity of survivorship outcome. The Department of Health and Human Services is managing this development and implementation. The specifications that went into the tender, that went into the whole life cycle of the development itself, was developed through the Victorian Integrated Cancer Services. That was contribution from the Metropolitan and the regional cancer services, and outside of that, some of the summits and stakeholder groups outside of those integrated cancer services. We then went to market to find a solution, and the market's a funny place. We understood the market had mature systems in place to offer a solution. When we evaluated the response, we found that it was not mature. The software that was present was not near enough correct for what was needed. In fact, a lot of the responses were not correct in terms of when tested. In terms of the tender response, were not correct. So the outcome of that was we weren't prepared to accept a response which was substandard or suboptimal. We looked further afield and we studied what goes on across Australia. We came across a very mature solution operating in Queensland, and we thought that this was a good option to explore further. We piloted the software in its current state in Queensland. We piloted it across 5 regional centres in Victoria for a period of 2 months on breast and colorectal tumour streams. So we ran the legacy system and the new system, or the Queensland system, alongside each of the MDMs, and we then analysed the result. The result was, we felt that there was a need for some enhancements to that software, 44 to be precise, and we signed a contract to develop that software to plug those 44 enhancements, but nevertheless the product itself met the requirements of our tender, 71% match, and that was just with the system as it was, not with the 44 enhancements, but just as it was, 71% match. I think the evaluation with the tender was a 49% match with the best offering from commercial operators. We also have a data model which we agreed and with various clinicians across Victoria, and we found that the system matched that data model to 94%. And we're talking around 238 elements for a particular tumour stream. If you can imagine 12 solid tumours, 3 liquid tumours, and underneath that you have a whole set of data elements upwards of 238. we got a very good match on that data collection. The feedback we got from the regions, we like the software, however, around the usability of the system, it needs to be optimized. We need to make it more user-friendly. We also noted that automation, in terms of what could be achievable for go live, would be around 36% of the data collection. A maximum of 65% automation was possible if you integrated practically everything. And 100% of pathology could be automated into the system should we have all of Victoria Path Labs feeding into the system, which is what we have done. So in summary, the pilot itself proved the viability of the solution. It proved the correlation with the original requirements that Victoria had established, and it confirmed the project benefits that we set out to achieve. And it also recognises that holding out for perfection causes delays, increases costs with diminishing returns, and increases impatience. Now I'm going to hand over to Phil to talk about pathology, because some of you may have a viewpoint or an interest in what we have done in the pathology space.
Right. I think I start on the next one. Yeah, well, when we talked about integrating this system with other systems out there, we had limited funds, so we thought, well, where's our best bang for bucks? And pathology is really it. With it's estimated 70% of the data collected in health systems is pathology, and about 70% of your decision making is based on pathology results. So we thought this is something we should really go for. And we had the opportunity to leverage the what the cancer registry is doing in terms of the ePath system. They have cancer-related pathology flowing into their registry electronically, and we thought, well, we can leverage this. Having this automated, we reduce the effort and we improve the accuracy, and we get timely delivery of those results into the system. Certainly no more than 24 hours, typically within minutes. So we do this by, currently the pathology labs send their data via the ePath system to the Victorian Cancer Registry. We're simply taking a copy of those pathology results and they're flowing on to QooL VIC. So this is not all pathology results, this is cancer related stuff, and there is some limitations, but in general it's pretty good. These limitations are what the cancer registry actually required to collect or can collect. So when the data comes from via the ePath system, we're doing two things. One we're doing is we're pulling out the patient demographic information. So we're pre-populating QooL with that information, so that doesn't need to be collected. When the clinician is submitting the patient, all they have to do is search for the patient and select that patient. Address and so on, date of birth is all entered in there. So again, there's streamlining of that. So yeah, that's weird. And so going forward, there's also some potential opportunity for integration with other systems. Some of you may be aware or may not be aware that the department is setting up a VUPI system, which is a Victorian Unique Patient Identifier. This will be like a PMI sitting above other patient master indexes and will store the UR numbers for the patient in other systems. This will help link stuff up, patient information up, and that's quite useful for this project. So that's a potential for the future. We also think radiology reports is a potential for the future, particularly if we can get, if the cancer registry start getting radiology reports in there, we would do exactly the same thing and leverage their work they're doing. Potentially chemotherapy information, but that may be a bit harder. And And we envisage those that have electronic medical records that we could pre-populate information within QooL from the EMR, and the results of the meetings could be put back into the EMR. And that would, again, streamline the whole process, save labour, and improve accuracy. I think that's me.
Excellent.
Yep.
So we're moving fairly quickly through these slides so that we can get on with the demonstration, but I think you're generally getting some of the context or how we derived at the solution you're about to see. So the question that needs to be asked for most health services in the metropolitan region at least is, what benefit is it to me in the use of this type of system? Now, what I can say is that there are some key benefits in regards to the offering, which is fundamentally around the technology aspect. You have a solution which will be residing in equipment in all of government within Queensland. That data is, and that software is using the latest technology stack. It has high availability and it's backed up and recoverable. It has a secure system. It has outside penetration tests annually to ensure that the software meets the cyber controls that the government expects us to have. It's important to note that looking across Victoria, we have a variety of systems in place today which would not pass any of the 72 checks around cyber controls and protection of information that the government has legislated. That's worthy of noting. This new system has an easy user interface and help functionality. It is more efficient around pre-meeting information collection through the use of automation, and it improves the quality of the data that's presented to clinicians for discussion at the meeting. And the same goes with the agendas that get issued in advance, containing the information necessary to have a meaningful discussion. There is something called the data matching and brokering engine, which is basically recording or matching patient information from earlier cancer events or other diagnostic tests. There is as Phil mentioned a moment ago, there is the automated patient demographic information and path results for all of Victoria. So every path result, cancer space across Victoria, is right now going into the system. If something is updated in a pathology lab and the report is sent off, a few seconds later, it is on that system. Reporting is comparable across the state because you're using consistent data sets and code value lists. It is patient-centric. When a patient is referred to another MDT or health service, the full MDM history is available. All of the events in other institutions or organisations in Victoria is recorded if they've been discussed at MDMs. Automated communication is available to clinical stakeholders, such as the meeting agenda, the patient treatment recommendations, GP notifications for those of you who wish to notify the GP of part of the discussion that you've held. You may have that facility switched on. And of course, requests for path and radiology presentations to individuals to come to your MDM and present for certain patients the path and radiology diagnostics report and talk to it. Or there is an automated quality assessment of real-time data capture. What does that mean? Well, each chair runs the MDM in a certain manner. The recording of the discussion goes into the system. Usually up to 2 days after that meeting, further additions are made to the system. And then the treatment plan or the minutes go out. What we're saying here is that we can look at that data and look at the minimum data set and examine the completeness of that discussion in terms of some of the data that's been collected. And that's useful for the chair to understand and take note for next time in terms of making sure that the data is captured fully. Of course, the data is stored in a manner that is reportable, and we endeavour to expand or improve the system through frequent upgrades. QooL Queensland and Cancer Alliance, who you'll meet in a moment, we've got 10 plus years of experience in development in this space, and it's not just MDMs. They'll talk to you about all of the other things that they do. They're happy to co-develop and innovate with Victoria, And just behind Victoria, I have colleagues we're working with in Western Australia who are also wanting to go down a similar path. And of course, it supports the quality framework around cancer as well. The system does.